Are you excited?
I am.
A little bit?
Hey guys, Metal Jesus here, and I am back. Back in Japan after 4 years. Ever since my wife and I got back from the previous trip, we have been dreaming of going back, and today is the day. We are so excited to head back. But this time we're going to do things a little bit different because we want to spend more time in each city, and we also want to venture out a little bit. Basically, we're going to be spending about 20 days in Japan and breaking that up in between Kyoto, Osaka, and Tokyo. Giving ourselves a little bit more time on this trip, we hope to be able to explore more, take in more of the tourist attractions, go to more restaurants, try more food. I really want to check out Super Nintendo World. And of course, you guys know me, it's all about games. And so on this trip, I'm going to do lots and lots of game hunting. And so I'm going to break up this trip in 4 videos. We're going to start in Kyoto. We're going to meet up with Kinsey and Tony, who have been living there for the past 2 years. The second video will be all about exploring Osaka. The third video is going to be all about exploring Tokyo, the massive city of Tokyo. And then the fourth and final video, I'm going to share with you my entire Japanese games pickups. You guys love pickup videos, and this one's going to be 100% all Japanese imports. I'm pretty excited about that. And so, without further ado, let's get started. All right, we are up on a Wednesday at 6 a.m. in a taxi heading to SeaTac. It's funny because 6 a.m. isn't really that early. However, I don't know about you, but anytime I have a big trip like this, I don't really sleep the night before. There's a ton of things to kind of remember. You have to get all your stuff together. You have to think about all the possibilities. You have to get all your cables for your smartphones and your iPads and your cameras and stuff. But also, it's just the anticipation. It's a new adventure. And so I never sleep well, which is the worst thing because it's such a long flight to Japan. At the start of this trip, we're actually going to be taking a really quick 30-minute flight from Seattle to Vancouver, Canada. And we get there and we're surprised to see that it's going to be on a small little propeller plane. I don't remember the last time I was on a plane that had a propeller, but this is a very small plane for a little puddle jump here. And then from there, we're going to be flying to Osaka, Japan. And for this flight, as you would expect, it's a much bigger plane. It's actually a Boeing 787-9, and it's all high tech. It's really wide, lots of seats. And thank goodness, because this is going to be an 11-hour flight. And the thing that sucks is that I can't really sleep on a plane. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I can never really get comfortable, or maybe it's just the movement, but yeah, it's going to be a long day for sure. The wild thing is, when we finally landed in Osaka, it was Thursday evening. So we got up early Wednesday morning in Seattle, and then you land Thursday evening. It's so weird. Like I said at the beginning of this video, we're actually going to start our adventure in Kyoto, but we landed in Osaka. And the reason why we're doing that is because we want to meet up with Kinsey. So what that means is we're going to hop on a train, and you see it's the Hello Kitty train. We didn't even plan this. It's just so funny. And then we're going to ride that for another hour and a half to get up to Kyoto. Now, if you've never been to Japan, it's actually a pretty large country. It's about the same size as the state of California. And so by the time that we get to Kyoto, it's actually dark outside, and we are dead tired. Like I said, it's been a very, very long day. But hop in a taxi and we head over to our hotel, and it's in this really lively downtown touristy area. I mean, suddenly we see all this people out there, all the lights, and man, it just energized us. There was a lot of activity and energy right there. So our hotel is in the heart of all this excitement, but it's actually a pretty cheap hotel. It costs 12,400 yen per night, which works out to roughly be about only 85 US dollars. Now, I don't know about where you live, but in Seattle, you can't really get a hotel room in downtown Seattle for $85 a night. So this is definitely where we're starting to see the power of just how much the US dollar is worth there. And you can see here, it's a pretty decent hotel room. Now, it's funny because normally my wife and I would try to get like a king size bed, but they don't really have those in a lot of hotels. So you end up getting two singles like this and just basically pushing them together. Also, I was excited to see the high-tech toilet. Oh, yes. When you go to Japan, you've got to try out their toilets. But you do need to be aware that Japan has some rules or guidelines when it comes to toilets. Basically, they just want you to sit down when you use them. They don't really like you to stand up and pee, and they don't want you puking in them. And then I don't know what that guy right there is doing, or that one right there. You mostly see these on public toilets, but I thought they were pretty funny. The next morning, we woke up around 5 a.m. and we kind of ventured out into the street.
Good morning. Where are we this morning?
We're in a vacant city. It's so weird, actually.
We are.
Because it was jam full of people last night, and like, there's one dude on a bicycle coming our way. He's probably gonna run me over. And it's amazing how quiet and empty the streets are at that time. I would say actually we were kind of walking around here around 6:30 a.m. and nobody is around. You see the footage here. Like, it's amazing because Kyoto is actually a pretty large city. 1.4 million people live here. That's a pretty decent city in my mind. But you would never know that in the morning. It's really wild. And it's nearly impossible to get some espresso that early in the morning. It seems like most of the local shops open around 10 a.m. But we did stumble upon a Starbucks, as lame as that is. I know we flew all the way to Japan to go to a Starbucks, but there is something really fun going into a store like that and kind of marveling at all the different food and drink options that they have that we don't necessarily get in the US. For instance, you see here that they've got some quiches and other things like that, but then they had this dish that looks like noodles. And I was like, I didn't know what this was. I was like, well, I'll try some noodles from Starbucks. That sounds pretty weird, but I'll try it. And then you see here, I was completely surprised that you actually put your fork into it, and it's this kind of brown sugar mousse, and it's got cookie crumbles in there. I mean, it was incredibly good. And jet lag is weird because technically we woke up and actually we were kind of hungry for real food. So then we hit up a couple convenience stores for breakfast. And this, again, is where Japan shines. You may have heard about the convenience stores in Japan, and it's all true. In the US, you wouldn't really go to a 7-Eleven or a convenience store for high quality food. But in Japan, you absolutely can. I mean, it's amazing. So you have 7-Elevens, you have Lawson's, you have Family Marts, and they're everywhere on every street corner. And it's all fresh food. And it's all really tasty food, and it's really cheap. All right, we decided to go to 7-Eleven for breakfast because it's really the only thing open. And we spent like 21,000 yen, or no, 2,100 yen. It was like $20. So, tea for Mrs. Metal Jesus. More tea for Mrs. Metal Jesus. Usually she would drink a lot of tea. I saw this Mount Rainier, which is where I'm from. So Washington State. I don't know if it's made there, but I got two of these because they're really small. But like a strawberry fruit latte.
Show me, baby.
This is going to be weird and awesome all at the same time.
Might be really good.
It might be really good. All right.
That's cool.
We fell in love with these cold noodles. You can see the broth on the bottom here. Originally, I was like, hey, do I need to warm that up? He's like, no, it's supposed to be cold. This is really tasty. We also got a cup of plum, cucumber, and radish.
A little salad, right?
Yeah, a little fiber. I don't know if we're going to eat all of this, but we're hungry.
I know.
So Chicken, egg, vegetables, and chili sauce, like in a hot dog bun.
Yeah.
This is probably really good too. This chicken, tomato, and egg.
Like it's like an onigiri sandwichy thing.
Sure. And then we saw these. These are pancakes with maple syrup and margarine built in. That's right, for the ultimate on-the-go food here. And then, of course, we got some chopsticks.
Rock on. Are you going to dig in?
Yeah, I am. All right, it's a little bit later in the morning, and now it is time to meet up with Kinsey and her husband, Tony. So excited to see them. Kinsey has planned this day, and she knows very well that we are going to be extremely jet-lagged and kind of a little out of our minds a little bit, and she was right. So we actually are going to spend this day going up to different shrines and kind of just doing some touristy stuff for a little bit. Now, this is pretty funny because one of the very first things that Tony asked me was,
"So why did you decide to come to Japan in the summer?"
When Tony asked me that, I was kind of taken aback. I didn't actually know why he was asking me that because, yeah, I know that Japan is hot in the summers, obviously, but we purposely chose to come in September, which is, technically the end of summer and basically fall, because we knew that it would be cooling down quite a bit. Well, we were maybe a little bit optimistic there. I guess this year it has been unusually warm and humid, and man, I'll tell you what, it was brutal. You guys are seeing me with my hair pulled back and sweat on my brow and my cheeks are red. It's because I live in Seattle. I mean, it's never that hot where I live. And yeah, I knew it'd be warm. No, we were not prepared for just how warm it is. And so it was really funny that Tony was like, yeah, it's still really hot here. And I think the first clue should have been that I saw people walking around in the morning with umbrellas. And it's not raining, by the way. It's just that you wanted to create your own shade wherever you went. And at first I thought that was kind of weird. It was like, I don't know if I'm going to carry around an umbrella in the sunlight. Yeah, I changed my tune after a while. But we are not going to let the heat and humidity stop us. Oh no. We are here to have fun and explore Japan. We're in Japan. You know what that means? We got to do some video game hunting. Let's go. Oh yeah, baby. I'm excited to do some video game hunting, and we're going to meet up with Kinsey here in a bit because she knows where all the good stuff is. First stop is going to be Surugaya, and I remember these stores from my previous trip. They're kind of all over Japan, and you never quite know what you're going to find in there, which is really fun for me. You walk into these stores and you're just like, I don't know, there could be gold in here. This particular store was super narrow, man. I felt huge in here. It was kind of awkward because I felt like I was blocking the aisle. I was blocking the aisle most of the time, but that's okay. I'm on a mission. A couple games I spotted in here that I was excited to find. The first one being the Godzilla Versus game on the PlayStation 4. Now, this is actually a pretty uncommon game in North America, and this is cheaper here. So I was like, yeah, I'm probably gonna pick up a copy of that. Also, Dodonpachi on the Sega Saturn is a classic shooter and one that a lot of people are looking for, including my buddy Troy. So I picked this one up. Not the cheapest Saturn game, but I know he wants it. One of the challenges when you come to Japan and you can't speak the language like me is that often the games are just lined up, with their spines sticking out. And because I can't read Japanese, I don't know what I'm looking at half the time. So a lot of times what I do is I have to just take the time and pull out each game to look at the cover. And so if you're ever going to go to Japan, one of the things I would recommend is do a little bit of homework before you go and acquaint yourself with the Japanese cover of some of the games that you're looking for. That way, when you're going through them like this, hopefully you can recognize them quicker. And also too, I should mention that Google Translate on your smartphone, using your camera will translate the spines for you as well. So you may see something that you don't recognize off the spine, use Google Translate, and then, you're like, oh, okay, I recognize that series. And you can just kind of move on from there. And don't let the prices that you see here fool you, because again, the exchange rate is basically 30% off of the yen price, right? Because of the value of the US dollar, at least as of the making of this video when I was there, you're getting basically 30% off everything. And a lot of these stores will make it so that you don't have to pay tax if you present them with your passport. And so yeah, it can be expensive to fly to Japan, but once you get there though, it can be kind of cheap. And speaking of video games, this is a good time to mention the sponsor of this Japan video. That is Cygnus Entertainment, created by the original founders of Sierra Online, Ken and Roberta Williams. They released the Colossal Cave 3D remake about a year ago, and while they are excited to bring the classic text adventure to a whole new audience, they did receive a bit of criticism and feedback from players and reviewers like me. Instead of abandoning the game, however, they took the feedback and worked for the past 9 months enhancing the game for a brand new version 2.0. The game's visuals have been greatly enhanced with better textures. There's also real-time lighting and shadows, as well as better animations to the characters. They've also updated the audio. They've added new tips within the game. There's a brand new autosave feature, as well as more map options, and they snuck in some Easter eggs and a ton more. Back when I originally reviewed it, you could tell that a lot of passion and pride went into their version of Colossal Cave 3D, but they weren't just satisfied leaving the game as is. They wanted to take the feedback and make the fans of the original game proud. So, if you haven't played the game yet, or maybe you played it originally and thought a bit more work could have gone into it, well, now is the time to check out the brand new 2.0 version. I'll put a link in the video description below, and I want to thank Cygnus Entertainment and Ken and Roberta for sponsoring this video. Today is Kinsey's birthday, and she planned a bunch of stuff to celebrate that, and so we're going to meet up with a bunch of her coworkers and friends at an okonomiyaki restaurant, and we're going to eat these savory Japanese pancakes, which Rebecca absolutely loves, and this is really fun. I love how this I guess it's like a bathroom door has this like hold your pee sign. I thought that was pretty funny. But the food was super tasty, and it was really cool to meet some of her friends and coworkers. And then after that, well, it's Japan, you got to do some karaoke. Now, this blew me away because essentially for $40 per person, we were able to take over this room as long as we want with as much beer as we wanted. This is unheard of in my mind. I mean, for $40, well, I left at around, probably 11 p.m. And I think they went to like 2 or 3 in the morning. And you're just drinking beer all night long, singing. I was really blown away by just how inexpensive this was. And as you can see, everybody just had a great time. This next day, Kinsey kind of suspected that she might be hungover, and so we really didn't plan much to do with them, at least in the morning. And so Rebecca and I had kind of a free day to do whatever we wanted, and we started out by exploring the Nishiki Market. This is a market that we kind of rushed through on our previous trip 4 years ago, and we sort of regretted it because this is a world-famous market in downtown Kyoto. It is over 400 years old. 400 years. And yes, it's very touristy and very crowded at times, but it's also just got a little of everything here. Especially matcha. Actually, Kyoto's kind of known for their matcha, and there's entire stores dedicated to it here. And again, this is our plan with trying to spend a little bit more time in each Japanese city, because the first time around we kind of rushed through it. And as you can see, there's just so much to take in here, so much to explore. After checking out the market for a while, we decided to hop on a train and go a little bit outside of the city and check out a world famous shrine. I'm not going to attempt to try to say it here. I would just butcher the name, but we knew it would be very popular, and also there is supposedly an awesome game store very close to it. And it was really pretty just walking around this area. I love this river just running through this whole downtown area here. Walking around, again, we're just looking for this game store. And it's nice because if you do take the time to get out of the city center, you'll find that these game stores are not as picked over. And that was certainly the case with this one. There's a lot of cool stuff here. I was able to find a red Japanese PSP. Now, in the US, we actually got a red one, but it was a God of War variant, which is cool. but this is just something that I hadn't seen, and it was also really cheap. I also picked up Front Mission 5 and The Bouncer on the PlayStation 2. I got Front Mission 5 because I heard that actually it's pretty easy to play in English. Maybe it has English subtitles. At least that's what I've heard. I have no idea. And then Vampire Rain on the Xbox 360. This was literally like the equivalent of $2. And so, again, because it's got that cool Japanese cover, I figured I'd just pick it up. We traveled back to our hotel, and later that evening, we were starting to get a little hungry. We were just kind of wandering the streets, and we stumbled into this department store, and you go down into the basement, and then it's like this high-end deli. It's crazy down here because, in my mind, it's a department store. Like, why would you go to a department store to have, like, food, like good food? But down here, actually, you can see all these special Japanese fruits that you would give away as gifts. They're super expensive, really high quality stuff. And so we did end up eating dinner here. We got a bunch of actually really tasty food for not that much money. But, it was something kind of like, okay, because we would never like go to JCPenney's or Macy's or Nordstrom and have this much to choose from. But it was all really tasty and way better than we expected. We are headed to Chuhai Labs. We're going to hang out with Kinsey, see where she works, and I think we're going to record a podcast. So it should be fun. The next day, we're going to meet up at Kinsey's work. So she works at a game developer called Chuhai Labs. And they put out a bunch of games on different systems, including the Playdate, also the MetaQuest 2, a bunch of VR games, but then also some games on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox. And basically, they do a weekly podcast and asked if I would join since I'm going to be in the area. And this was a really fun chat where we talked about some of the games they're playing. They also asked me what I thought about Japan and my trip there. We talked about my YouTube channel and a lot more. Welcome to the Nasty Labs podcast, legally the best podcast. We're part of the Tokyo Beat Network, and we're the podcast from the game studio Chuhai Labs, where we talk about games, game dev, Japan, and whatever else comes up. As always, we're your hosts. I'm Kinsey. That's Mark. So open yourself up a Chulai and let Chulai. I was doing so well.
And let's go.
So I'll put a link to that down in the video description below if you want to give it a listen. It's pretty fun.
So today we're going to go to Arashiyama. So we're going to see some monkeys, some bamboo, a big river, eat some good food. Can't wait.
Woohoo! So now we're taking a train to the Arashiyama part of Kyoto, which is basically the other side of the valley. And again, I'm struck at the beauty here of Kyoto because, like I said, Kyoto is a massive city with 1.4 million people living there, but then just literally on one side of the city, you have all of this beauty. As you can see here, it's this huge wide river running through this area with lots of trees, lots of nature to explore. And I guess most people come here to see the monkeys. At least that's what Kinsey told us about this. She was like, you gotta go see the monkeys. And basically what you do is you hike up this hill on this really narrow path, and at the top of the mountain are these monkeys. And essentially they are free roaming. They are loose in the area. And so it was really neat to be that close to all these monkeys. Now they're very clear. You do not touch them under any circumstance, and there's a bunch of handlers kind of around to make sure that people don't get too handsy with them, and also probably in case the monkeys get maybe a little too rowdy. But they're walking around you. It was just such a cool experience. Now there is an area where you can feed the monkeys. Basically you go into this little caged area to protect you, essentially, so that they don't get super aggressive. And that's where you can feed them if you want. And again, that's pretty neat how they do this. So it's a kind of a balance between interacting with nature in this big city. It's something I guess I just didn't expect to find. Another benefit of hiking up that hill is that you're rewarded with a spectacular view of all of Kyoto and that entire valley.
So if you come up to the monkey park, you can get a stamp that means you made it up that hill.
We earned that. In this same area is the Bamboo Grove. And this is another thing I was looking forward to because, you know, when you watch a bunch of anime or a bunch of Japanese movies, you always see these big forests of really tall bamboo. And so I felt like this is something that, you know, if you're going to go all this way to Japan, you definitely want to see this. And it was pretty cool. I mean, it's a bamboo forest, so there's not really a lot to do there. Really, it's just kind of serene and also kind of surreal because we don't have anything like this where I come from. And so, you know, the whole thing is you just kind of walk through there. There's a couple shrines and stuff like that. It's meant to be, I think, kind of just, like I said, just very chill. And the other bonus is because it's so hot out and these things are so tall, well, there's tons of shade. So this is a nice place to be in when it is really hot. We're coming to an end of our trip in Kyoto, but before we get to Osaka, Kinsey was like, there is a really cool game store that is on the way that you're probably going to want to stop at. And so we got off this little train station on our way and found a little game store that, again, is not picked over. And I got to tell you, it was really cool. Another total hole in the wall, you know. You walk into these places and it's just wall-to-wall video games. In here, I was specifically looking for some Switch games that are Japanese exclusives. And yeah, I found 3 of them. I was very, very happy. And so guys, that is part 1 of my trip to Japan, but we are far from over. In part 2, we're going to be going to Osaka, and the first stop is going to be going to Universal Japan and checking out the Super Nintendo World. If you're like me, you've heard a ton about this, and I am dying to check this out. And what's cool is that it's part of Universal, so not only are we going to go to Super Nintendo World, but we're also going to check out all the other areas of that park.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
We're also going to hit up the official Nintendo store. We're going to do a day trip to Kobe. We're going to do some more game hunting and a ton more. So you're definitely going to want to be subscribed. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.